it's a nice hybrid model to present here at South Summit. So it's amazing to be here today. Our panel is about, our title is Doing Well by Doing Good, because we've just heard the climate crisis, what's happening, and all the losses. But I wanted to invite Javier to be here today, and now I will briefly introduce you to him, because there's also a huge opportunity for startups, for investors to do good, or to do well by doing good, so that I stick to the theme of the panel today. So Javier Manzanares, I'm very honored to have you here. Javier is right now Executive Director of the Green Climate Fund, which has 9.6 billion under management to invest in climate projects, okay? Amazing, that number. But he has been wearing many different hats throughout his life. So he has been working in private banking as Executive Director of Banco Santander in US, Hong Kong, Japan. He has also worked in United Nations for 4 years. He has been working in regional development, and now he has been for almost 8 years now in the Green Climate Fund. And I think that has built the person we have here today, because he has been wearing very different hats and analyzing the problem from different perspectives. So welcome, Javier. Thank you for being here with us today. I don't know if you can see your image, but it's quite good, no? The mixture. I wanted first to start knowing the person, which is very important, because we've heard in previous panels, the team, the people, ideas, there are many. But I guess when you analyze your career, that there has to be a purpose behind your actions. So I want to know a little bit who is Javier Manzanares, no?
Right, thank you so much, Isabella. Great privilege to be with you guys. Thank you to South Summit, the organizers, sponsors. Thank you to Instituto Empresa for having me. And well, it's because of the number of years living abroad. I was nearly 30 years when I moved to San Francisco to pursue a career in finance. So at that point, well, my English was poor, and the objective was trying to get into a second language, and as well as get into a finance world. So I did initially a postgrad degree with UC Berkeley, and then a master's degree in University of San Francisco. Everything was about finance for me at that point. So it was about stock options. It was about the hedging strategy. So I got in banking. I was with the Spanish bank at that point, BCH, that became BSCH, Banco Santander. And with the bank, I moved to a number of countries, stayed with the private sector, financing area with the Fierro Group. And at that point, there was an opportunity to move into a regional development banking. There is a Central American Bank for Economic Integration in Central America, and covering a number of countries where Spain is a shareholder. So it was my first experience switching from the regular private sector into perhaps a more meaningful area, whereas your contribution, your experience really made some difference to those countries, emerging countries, developing countries in general. So that was my first experience. It was great. And at that juncture, because of a political situation, there was a coup d'etat in Honduras. So I moved to United Nations, worked as a regional regional director for Mercosur countries, based in Argentina and covering Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Brazil. I felt that was a lot more meaningful life and contribution, professional contribution. So from that point, really was missing finance. UNOPS was more about the fiduciary administration, public procurement, sustainable infrastructure. And then I was missing more like the finance part of it. So I applied for a job at the Green Climate Fund. I was back in 2014. And then became a CFO and Director of Support Services of the GCF. And it was a startup, and I think it's a great framework for the type of the discussion that we are having today. I was a complete startup, yes, indeed created by the United Nations, but not even furniture in our buildings. So it is headquartered in South Korea as our D country to an open, competitive, transparent bidding process. So from that 2014, we have been setting up the GCF to the point where it is today. We have about $20 billion in contributions in investments from countries. And like you said earlier on, Isabella, out of those 20 billion, the GCF has already made investment decisions for approximately $10 billion. And that is in benefiting developing countries only. When you were asking about my change, my career, my pathways, so that's the more relevant aspect is going into finance, to using finance for supporting developing and emerging economies. Over to you.
Yeah, so you're saying that the Green Climate Fund started as a startup. Here we are in space for startups, amazing. A startup with 20 billion in funds is, is great because the impact you can make. I want to go a little bit into the model of the Green Climate Fund, but specifically into the type of projects in which the funds are now invested, no? I have this data from the website, so maybe you have more recent numbers, but you've already invested in 186 projects. And what really amazes me, and it's something I always like to bring to the table, is that you don't only impact, the investments don't only impact the environment, but they also have a side effect, and it's in the people. And the data that's on the web is 500 million people are increasing their resilience to climate change thanks to these projects. I don't know if you want to highlight any of these. I know there are many. Amazing. Go into the website. I recommend you all to do this.
Yeah.
Javier?
Right, I think yes, indeed, I would like to update you because today, as we speak, and during this week, we're holding a board meeting. It's our 30th board meeting of the GCF, and usually during those sessions, we present for board decision a number of funding proposals. For this board session, we are presenting $1.2 billion in projects. It's 13 projects in a number of different countries. Things are going fairly well. So out of those 13 so far, 9 have been approved. And today we are having a session starting at 9 p.m. Korean time. We expect the board will approve the remaining 4 projects. That will bring us up to $10 billion, and it would be 190 projects approved around the world. The GCF, Isabella, serves 140 countries that are considered by the United Nations Framework Convention for Climate Change, as the UNFCCC. You can see them listed. They are called non-Annex 1 countries. So that's where our investments, our interventions are for. And going into the nature of our investment, indeed, like you said, it's not only about the emission reductions as part of our mandate in climate change, but it is definitely about co-benefits. And it is definitely about benefiting communities and people. Once that, if we get all the projects approved, the number of people that will be indeed benefited will reach up to 610 million. That's actually a main KPI, a main key performance indicator in our adaptation interventions. And in those, in all of our projects, you will see an analysis that is done. It is based on an investment criteria. And that investment criteria contains precisely how is it that we benefit communities? Is there a country-driven approach in our investments? Is there efficiency and effectiveness? Is there impact in a way that is within sustainable development? So all of those points are clearly stated in our interventions, and they are formulated when we present a funding proposal for board decision.
And Javier, is one of your criteria to be profitable also? Because I guess it's also an opportunity. I've seen some of the projects that are with a level of technology, a very high level of technology, and I guess these technologies now might be very expensive, and the price will be reduced, like what happened with renewables, or those would be like the renewables of the future, actually, no? And you're investing in that. Are they meant to be profitable also, so that you can reinvest again in more projects? Yes?
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, because when talking about the UN-created fund, maybe the immediate reaction is, oh, it is grant-based, private sector is not part of that, the IRR is not a main attribute, and that's not the case. Out of this $10 billion, on or about 35% is directly to the private sector, where our main role is to de-risk the investments so that we can crowd in private sector investments. So we understand, obviously, private sector will come in for a return. What we do at that point is coming in first, so we de-risk. We reduce the risk of private sector investors that are coming in later on. And that's working very well. So when I said the $10 billion portfolio, that's the $10 billion of GCF funds, but the total invested portfolio, it's nearly $35 billion.
Yes.
And by the way, if I may add, Isabella, if I may add, so that you understand our interest for innovation and technology, from that portfolio, on or about 60% contain important elements of innovation and technology. So we do pursue projects that will bring innovation, whether it's social innovation, financial innovation, environmental innovation, all of those to the projects where a technology element is part of it, and with the purpose to scale up our investments so that we can replicate projects that are within the content of our mandate and can be duplicated, can be replicable all around our coverage of 140 countries. And having said that, and for the audience, what I would like to invite, we have coincidentally, we have our Global GCF Private Investment Conference. It's going to be held online October 18th and 19th. So I would like to really invite your audience to participate. I think it is a great opportunity because during my time at the GCF, I have not seen that much of a Spanish component into our portfolio. So maybe this is a good opportunity for entrepreneurs, for startups to connect, to understand how we operate within the GCF and the private sector.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity also because they can validate their funds also so that you can co-invest with them, no? So it's an opportunity to grow and to invest in a very specific area, which is subject to growth. I wanted to to finish because we only have 3 minutes, but I wanted to share some thoughts about the climate change and the overall rise in temperatures. In 2015, we had the Paris Agreement, which was signed, and the goal was to reduce global temperatures or to avoid that the global temperatures increase more than 1.5 degrees Celsius before the pre-industrial levels. We know that we have already emitted greenhouse gases to make the rise about 1 degree, a little bit more. So, and we know that there are many developing countries which, of course, will increase their industrial areas and increase the number of gases that they are emitting. So there's a technological opportunity there. And of course, technology has to solve the problem because we know that the countries cannot stop their growth because there will be a social problem too, no? So it's complex. Which do you think are the technologies that will be like the savers of the planet? Do you have any projects in that areas, carbon capture, or what do you think is going to be there in several years?
Yeah, I would say, Isabella, is probably not one specific technology, because in here, I think you're talking about emission reductions. And it is almost impossible to tackle emission reductions without tackling adaptation. So what we do is we embrace them both in a manner that the solutions are intertwined in what ESG frameworks are about. So innovation and technology, particularly startups on accelerators and incubators that can tackle environmental, social, and governance matters. So you can go, definitely the easy answer is energy, because if we are to address the main pillars of emission, you just go into manufacturing, you go into energy, whether it's generation, whether it's distributed energy, renewable. So you do those elements. But my message to you is that we want to pursue them all together within, whether it's resilient infrastructure on one side, towards early warning system for adaptation, climate information. And the challenge is, and for the audience when going into startups, I think the challenge is not so much on the mitigation. There will be funds. There is financing out there. I think the challenge is how to make climate technology breakthrough investments in adaptation that do generate a flow of funds that create, at the end of the day, bankable projects and investments. And for that, and with that I'll finish if you allow me, for that we are presenting to our board early next year a request for proposal. It's a bidding process. It's a window with an envelope hopefully of around $150 million for startups. Startups on what we call hubs for acceleration and incubation of startups, brand new breakthrough technology.
So we want many Spanish startups to be there. So thank you
Indeed.
very much. Thank you very much for being here today, and thanks to all for being here in South Summit. Thank you, Javier.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you for having me.
Ciao.